Hey, what's up guys, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day. If you're not, I hope your day get a lot better from now on guys, and I wish you all well. Welcome back to Anime King, and today I'm going to be giving you What If Naruto Was a Direct Descendant of the Sage, Part 13. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends and social media platform, and also stay in tune for Anime King 3. I'm going to be posting a new episode over there tonight, so stay tuned for that and I hope you guys enjoy. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you're hearing my voice and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 3, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. And yeah, without further ado, what do you say we begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last time we left off, they were still on the island. Hanoka-sensei was absorbed by the creature, as Naruto got an idea, as it was still a summoning creature, right? He made his way towards the edge where the lava was. As he sent out his chakra, the creature was shocked when it suddenly appeared in front of Naruto. Blasting it off the edge, the thing fell down into the lava, as he heard it splashing around, trying to escape. But it wasn't enough for the lava, as the thing got incinerated. Something happened to Naruto in this fight though, as he forgot a teaching from his master a long time ago, as Hanoka had made him realize that. After some time passed, as they had to go now, Hanoka said that she was going to Uzi as her sensei has promised to bring her there, as she hoped that they can meet again sometime. So with that, the group left, as Naruto and the others made their way towards Kiri. We then had another time skip as months passed. A lot of things was revealed in those months. For one, Naruto and Shizuku relationship got even better, as they were now working for the rebels. Naruto did his best not to kill anyone, yes, and in doing so he still always get the job done. Shizuku had learned about what happened to her. Never knew her parents, she understand now, as she was an experiment by Orochimaru, but she was as much as a real person as anyone else. That is why her control over water was so potent, as she was from the Hojichi clan, the mixture of their clan, allowing her to turn her body into 100% water. A lot of training went by in the last months, as they all have grown a bit. As Yagura heard the reports, he found out about Naruto, as Naruto was always there, that boy, always breaking down his camps. Yagura decided that it was time that he end this rebellion, as me has gone on long enough. We then had another time skip as Naruto, Shizuku and Fu made their way, as they arrived to an olden, abandoned warehouse. For what reason it was abandoned they did not know, but there were supplies there, a lot of them. The group had to split up to make way, as Naruto found a lot of things in there, but he had to flee when he heard the guards coming, quickly making his way downstairs. As he had on his invisibility jutsu, he came upon a room, but it was a trap. Yagura stepped out of the shadows. Naruto was surprised to see the man here. Naruto knew that he was powerful, but going up against a full-fledged Kage, that would be difficult. But it all changed when he brought down Shizuku, as the man had electrocuted her on purpose, and daring Naruto to move that he would just kill her, as Naruto couldn't move. He tossed her to one of his 10 subordinates that were in there, as the man welcomed Naruto to attack him, and Naruto did with the almighty push. The others couldn't see it, but Yagura created a mirror, and the same force of the almighty push came from the mirror and cancelled it out. As he turned towards his commander, as the man started to point the kunai closer to Shizuku's neck. Naruto had enough, he would protect her. So yeah guys, it was basically as we left off. You guys can switch across the place and take care of yourself. So what is the beginning to episode? Naruto shot towards Yagura with impressive speed, surprising the Anvils. They never knew that this boy was so fast. Yagura was harmlessly leaning against his staff. It happened so quickly, if you had blinked you would have missed it. One moment he was leaning up against the staff on the wall, the next moment the staff was in front of him. as he slammed it right into Naruto's chest. Naruto was sent sailing back as he skidded on the ground. He finally stopped as he held onto his chest, where he was sure a large bruise would be forming. He didn't even see Yagura move, and yet he struck him so effortlessly. The worst part was Naruto knew that somehow he was holding back on that blow. Is that all? You know, I was hoping for a lot more from you. He looked around, once again twirling his staff like he didn't have a care in the world. Then again, I guess there's no sand here for you to use, huh? He smirked as Naruto's hand clenched again. But then Naruto grinned. Wrong. The back of Naruto's hand glowed as two seals were on them. Sand started to pour out of them, surrounding Naruto. It wasn't as much as he would like, but he had to make do with what he could seal. It was difficult to seal chakra component substance, especially something like sand. Yagura raised his eyebrow for a moment before laughing to himself. Now that's a little more like it, but unfortunate for you, not enough. He suddenly crouched down as he placed two fingers on the ground with a smirk. Sengoku. Before Naruto could react, the ground around Yagura started to change. Random, red material substance. As Naruto recognized it was coral, as the thing had already surrounded the area. He sent out his hand to distort, but as the moment a single grain of sand touched a coral, it absorbed it. It spread so fast his sand didn't stand a chance, it was all gone. Naruto quickly jumped up and flipped away before it could ensnare him. When he turned, Yagura raised his hand off the ground, removed the coral like he wasn't even there, taking his hand with it. Well, now I'm bored. It was amusing for a moment, but it served its purpose. Do you now see what you face? Do you now see why it's futile to struggle against me? He smirked as he tapped his chin with the end of his staff. I want to send a message to Rebellion, and I want you to be the one to send it, but you're a bit too dangerous to keep alive, you know? Yagura sighed. Oh well, I'll find another way. My man are closing in on your little green hair friend at the end of the building. Maybe she can deliver it instead. In any case though, you two are now unnecessary. Yagura flicked his hand. Naruto turned his head quickly as the envoy holding Shizuku brought his hand back with the kunai within it. The man moved so quickly as Naruto watched in horror as blood sprayed. Shizuku's head snapped up, her mouth opening in a silent scream. Tears run down her face. She winced as kunai was ripped out of her as blood sprayed. Shizuku and Naruto's eyes met. As Naruto was seeing the patch of red that was on the back of her clothes, where the man had stabbed her. Everything seemed to just froze. Drip. The blood splashed on the floor, creating a stain. It was drawn by another and then another, as the ground was stained with blood. He ignored everything else, his breathing. The sound the envoy made wiping off the blood kunai, Yagura, as he passed his staff from one hand to the other. His focus was solely on Shizuku. You see, monk, everyone in the world has a weakness, as long as they make foolish attachment to others. As a Kage, you come to understand the best ruler people and your forces. You must discard these petty feelings. I believe that is what you monks are taught, is it not? To discard feelings and look at the world objectively. To find true enlightenment. Am I wrong? Yagura raised eyebrow as the blonde seemed to be fully out of it. He sighed as he waved his hand. Shizuku's body was thrown forward each time she bounced off the ground. She left a stain of blood on the ground as she cried out in pain. Immediately, Naruto was at her side, not the envoys moved though, waiting orders from Yagura. Your hands twitched towards your pouches as Naruto rolled Shizuku over softly. She coughed up blood staining her cheek red and her chin. I'm so sorry, Naruto, she said, her voice stuttering. The huge hole in her chest sprayed no blood, leaking all over her clothing. Don't talk. I can still help. I can get you somewhere to help. She coughed once more, blood spraying out of her mouth. Naruto, please don't talk. You need to save your energy right now. That is what you're supposed to do in these situations, remember? As Naruto's hand moved over the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. When he pressed on the wound though, her eyes closed in agonizing pain. He did nothing, too much blood was leaking between his fingers. Naruto, please. Naruto looked around, searching for something, anything he could do to stop this. He didn't know medical ninjutsu, first aid, wouldn't stop something like this. As he felt completely useless, watching the girl he cared about so much bleed out right in front of his eyes. Come on, Shizuku. Stop with that voice, alright? You're acting like you're gonna die or something. As Shizuku felt her body become numb, the pain slowly going away as she felt detached from everything. As if her body was no longer hers and she was just a spectator. Naruto, she struggled with the words. The edge of her vision was going dark. All she could see was his rippled eyes looking down at her with worry. The strand of his blonde hair falling down across his face. Please, stop crying. As more blood leaked from her mouth as she said that, Naruto blinked as he noticed the liquid on her face. It wasn't blood, it was tears from him. Shizuku reached up slowly, as her hand rested on his cheek and wiped the tears. A small smile came on her face. That's better, she said. She gave him another brief smile, as her eyes closed. She couldn't keep them open any longer. Naruto, thank you. Her breathing came to a stop as her head fell over to one side. Naruto became pale as he stood there. Shizuku. She didn't answer. Shizuku, he said. Shizuku, he said, hoping that she would just wake up. He gently shook her like she was asleep, but she only needed to wake up. He felt warm tears coming again, but he sniffed them back. She didn't want him to cry, so he wouldn't. Come on, Shizuku, you have to wake up. We still have so much to do, don't we, he said, as a pained smile was on his face. Come on, we were going to try and find your family, remember? We still had stuff to do, right? Like your techniques. Naruto pulled her body against him as he hugged her tightly. We were going to go to the sand and make it rain. He wasn't sure how long he stayed there with her body resting against his, as he cried. It was probably only a few seconds, but it felt like a lot longer. Gently, he laid her body onto the floor, wiping his face, his tears, as the red blood stained his face. Yagura listened to this as he was looking at his hand, rather bored. He granted the boy and the girl last dying words to see if anything would happen. I know he was disappointed. Usually, he felt excited seeing life, leaving his victim eyes, but he dragged this out a bit too long. He just wanted to go back to his office now. He made another gesture with the hand that he was looking at. Deal with him. I've lost interest in him. His envoys pull kunais and throw them. As Yagura simply turned his back, even envoy in the ceiling that he had left remaining there threw down kunais as well. But he didn't hear metal hitting flesh. All he heard was kunai hitting the floor. Yagura turned to see Naruto standing there. His hair was shattering his eyes. Not even a single kunai had touched him. Still fighting, even now. I thought you realized the futility of such pointless actions. Yagura sighs. He wondered how to make this more interesting. He didn't have to though. As he and the envoy watched, a strange aura spread through the room. The wings around Naruto pick up, even though his body was perfectly still. Yagura wasn't impressed by the level of killing intent though. But the wings started to pick up even more. The malicious aura in the air started to weigh down on them like an invisible pressure. Soon they realized it wasn't just that. There was a pressure weighing down on their shoulders. Yagura seemed ineffective, but he noticed the added weight on his body. As Naruto's hand clenched even harder, and their weight increased. It was only a few seconds before envoy on the ceiling suddenly dropped to the ground. Others soon followed, dropping down to their knees as they barely able to hold up their own weight. They felt like large chains were weighing down on their bodies. Through it all, Yagura stayed standing as his teeth were gritting in annoyance, his eyes narrowing. Naruto's hair started to lift up in the air as a faint shimmer started to glow around him. Yagura realized what was happening. He had seen this many times because he was always at the center of it. Vile red chakra started to leak from Naruto's body. It bubbled. It seemed like it wanted to latch out at everything. Ever so slightly, Naruto hunched over as a raw, poured-in chakra leaked from his body. A jinchuriki. Those pesky rebels are better than hiding their secrets and give them credit for. Huh. Yagura rolled his shoulder and spun his staff as he slammed it in front of him. I hope you know that won't save you. A brat like you would never know how to master his forms. I, on the other hand, said Yagura, have no such restrictions. Yagura's lip twitched as Naruto was not saying a single word. He hated to be ignored, especially someone that was beneath him. It's very rude to ignore your superiors, you know that? The only response he got was tails emerging. 3 thick tails made from chakra waved around lazily behind Naruto. 2 long ears came from the side of the cloak, and paws like figures came over his hand. Yagura smirked. The bubbles in the cloak showed that the boy had no control whatsoever. Just a slave to the habitual emotions, in this case, most likely rage. But that wasn't the only thing. Sand started to grow around Naruto's feet. It just appeared out of nowhere. It was circling Naruto almost protectively. Not only that, the area of the cloak around his arms were different. They were burning. They were not bubbling, burning. And they were taking on a more purplish color. Then it stopped. Naruto's eyes snapped open. The cloak was there, no longer bubbling, just stiff around his body. Naruto turned as his eyes locked with Yagura's. You. Yagura could hear the boy's voice clearly. There was no other emotions guiding him. Did he master the power so quickly? Suddenly Yagura saw the tails vanish. Only thing remained was a cloak. That was impossible. Just manifesting a full cloak, with no change to your body. What was going on? It was like the chakra was no longer Abiju's. It was Naruto's to control as he saw fit. Naruto raised his foot and stepped forward. The ground cracked under the weight from the sheer pressure that was coming from the cloak. Yagura snarled lightly. He hated being misinformed and caught off guard like this. And he was not weak. In an instantly, an explosion of power leaked from his body as he was surrounded in a cloak as well. 3 tails swing behind him. Even his staff was encased by the energy, making the floor on it wither a bit. Unlike Naruto, his eyes changed slightly as they became slits with a golden band around the pupil. The aura in the air became more oppressive as Yagura released his power as well. But where Yagura's was controlled and filled with a rage, Naruto's was feeling cold and powerful. As Naruto walked forward, the ground was cracking under his feet as he made his way. The Anvus, all of them were pressed flat to the floor by now. Many of them started to cry out in pain as they felt like the ribcage was being snapped, like an enormous weight had been placed upon their chest. "You should stop now, boy, before I force you," said Yagura. Naruto said nothing, his eyes still focused on Yagura. Yagura would never admit it, but he was unnerved by those eyes, so cold, pulsating with so much power. Yagura growled as he blasted forward. The tiles were lifted off the ground as he rushed. Yagura raised his staff and boom! Dust filled the entire area. When it finally cleared away, the few envoys that were looking saw what happened. Their eyes widened. Naruto simply stood there in a large crater, the sand whipping around him. Yagura was a foot off the ground. Naruto's hand was around his throat. The staff was on the ground to the side. It was knocked from his hands faster than Yagura could even see. Even though he had on the sand by his cloak, Yagura could feel that tightening purple hand around his throat. When he looked down, Naruto's expression did not change. Those eyes were still cold. But there was something that flickered into them. Satisfaction. Yagura then felt something slam into him as his body burst through the roof and sent sailing away. Naruto then turned towards Shizuku's body. He walked back to her body and picked it up under one arm. He lifted his hand. The entire roof was blown off as he jumped, hovering above the ground for a moment before his feet slowly touched down, as he was now on top of the surface once again. The ground then fell apart, crushing everything underneath him. The envoys are still there, but Naruto didn't care. As he laid Shizuku's body down on the ground gently, Yagura finally emerged from the tree line, looking irritated as hell. However, Naruto still looked at him with those eyes, those burning, cold eyes. "I will admit, you surprised me with that, boy. But don't expect it to work again." Rain started to fall down. It evaporated as it came down on the two of them because of their cloaks. Yagura then hunched over. The skin on his body started to peel away, showing a red mass underneath of pure, potent power. Soon, all that remained was a human-like figure with a shell on his back, with his 3 tails now completely cloaked in that burning red chakra. As this was the second stage of the Jinchuriki transformation, Naruto didn't even blink as he was stepping forward, his feet still a crater in the ground with each step that he made. The miniature sandman raised his head back, tails hovering over his mouth. Little orbs of red and blue chakra burst out of his body before they started to realign right in front of his mouth. As they started to form together into a large black ball, the power wavered for a moment, looked like it was about to burst, despite the round, thick black ball. But Naruto simply still stepped forward. The mini sandman then launched a Biju bomb towards him. Naruto took in a deep breath as he stopped, still making perfect eye contact with Yagura. 4 long projectiles launched from Naruto's chakra around him as they slammed into the black ball. Everything went still for a moment as no explosion was given off. The Biju bomb started to shrink as Naruto absorbed the powerful attack. Naruto's cloak then returned back to normal as he continued to walk. Yagura's eyes, even though in version 2, eyes wide in surprise and shock. As Naruto raised his hand, universal pull. Yagura was yanked. Once again, his throat was grabbed by Naruto's hand. Yagura's eyes went wide. Where Naruto was holding onto his neck, the cloak started to melt away, showing his real neck. He could feel his and the sandman's chakra get absorbed. All 3 of his tails shot forward to kill Naruto, but they were stopped by the sand that was swirling Naruto's feet. The sand looked like it was moved on its own. For the very first time since becoming Mizukage, Yagura felt true fear in his heart. A snarl appeared in his face. "It's not over yet, monk!" An explosion rocketed through the clearing that blasted Naruto back. But Naruto still stood firm, as his feet was ripping through the earth. 2 long trenches because he didn't jump or scroted or nothing. His feet just ripping the earth, finally coming to a stop. The massive 3-tailed form could be seen. The beast towering over Naruto with one eye, looking down at him. Naruto's face remained emotionless as he looked at the beast. The thing roared, shaking the entire area. It could be heard for miles, but Naruto's face didn't even change the slightest. Naruto started to raise himself up in the air until he was above the mighty Biju. He stared at the beast with cold, wide eyes. As he raised one arm, almighty. Push! Meanwhile, Fu hadn't finished dealing with the Kira Shinobi as sudden appeared out of nowhere when the blast rocked the building. Cracks in the walls spread out as dust rained down from the ceiling. Everyone quickly rushed in the building, rushed out into the rainy night. As they did, a roar could be heard. Fu didn't waste time, she knew wherever that roar was, Naruto would be nearby. The entire building started to collapse as she jumped away. She had to stop and embedded her feet in the ground as a massive shockwave blew past her, tearing down the already breaking down building. She quickly rushed off as she felt the powerful unleashed jinchuriki ahead. Fu didn't know if Naruto was fighting a jinchuriki or if he was using his own Biju's power. Either way, it was bad and she had to help. She then emerged into a large clearing like it looked like it was just made. All trees were blasted to nothingness, some of them bent in strange angles. The force had been spread from a wide area she could see. There was a massive crater in order the Lord spreading, and right in the center of that crater, Naruto was holding on to Yagura, right in the center. The cloak around Yagura started to bleed away into Naruto's body. Fu then saw something at the edge of the crater, a lifeless body. Focusing, her eyes went wide. Meanwhile, Yagura, all the power was leaving him. Both hidden in the sandbars, the boy was stealing the power. He could only think of the irony to be killed by a bloodline user. One with the most powerful dojutsu nevertheless. He was surprised though, as he could feel his chakra being drained out. Something happened in the boy's eyes. 3 tomo appeared in the boy's eyes. It was like a triangle with the 3 tomos. And there was a small tomo in the center, right in Naruto Rinnegan, before it flickered away. Yagura laughed, but Naruto tightened his grip, as he could feel his breath cutting down. "What now, monk? Would you kill me? That would be breaking your moral code as a monk. You deserve more than death for what you've caused." Yagura coughed, as he could feel this boy was taking away his Biju. He was going to be dead anyway. Strangely, he felt no fear. He felt freedom. Why? "Maybe or maybe not," said Yagura. "But are you gonna be my executioner? You don't have it in you. We both know that." Naruto turned his head as Yagura grinned, but Naruto's head snapped back towards him. Human path. Time froze for Yagura as a cold chill swept through his body. It felt like he was buried in ice, and then it felt like he was on fire at the same time. There was a moment of peace as Yagura felt free, but then nothing. "That was for Shizuku," said Naruto. As he started to pant, the cloak on his body disappearing. As he held Yagura's body in one hand, limply, he dropped it to the floor. As Naruto felt another presence by his side, Fu looked down at the dead body of the Mizukage with contempt and confusion. She wasn't sure how she was supposed to feel in this situation, but there was a more pressing matter as she placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto walked away, without a word. She turned to see him drop right in front of Shizuku's body. She walked over and sat beside him, the body of their best friend and their enemy lying dead in the clearing. Time skip. Mei was smiling, despite them being pushing back. They were having fun here at the moment. This was what she fought for, to see her people happy and not be in contempt and fear. As she sighed, as she heard Kojiro say something that set Ayo off on one of his rants, as she started to laugh. Before anything else could be said, there was a commotion outside. Ayo quickly activated his Byakugan, but what he saw shocked him to no end. The flap then pushed open as a figure ducked in. Mei sighed internally, as it was just Naruto. But the guards would have stopped him and addressed her first. But she noticed something was wrong. His face was blank, no smile. At that moment, she noticed he was dragging something. No, somebody. As Naruto threw the thing forward, as it landed, Mei's eyes went wide. It was Yagura. As Naruto walked out of the tent, without saying a single word, leaving all of them in pure, Shocked silence. Time skip. Fu made her way through the corridor, as she had to lean up against the wall. She really hated boats. She come to realize that. She made her way towards the deck of a ship. Out here the cool air though. She took in a deep breath. She felt a bit bitter, but still, the constant rocking. She peered up at the bright sun shining down above them. There wasn't many people above the deck as she looked around. Sure enough, she spotted him. Naruto was always where he was, at least since coming aboard. He stood at the railing just staring at the sea, with dull, uncaring eyes. He had been this way ever since Shizuku had died. He barely spoke a word to anyone. They had left the rubber camp as soon as he dropped off Yagura's body. Fu figured that it was... He couldn't bear it, with all the time he spent with Shizuku there. They weren't stopped. Everyone was just too shocked that Yagura was dead. By the time Mei had snapped out of it, it was too late, and the two had already been gone. She sighed again as she made her way over. The boat rocked once again, as she stood beside the blonde. He didn't even acknowledge that she was there. As they stood there, Naruto didn't have nothing to say, and Fu didn't know what to say. It was times like this when she really hated Take. Maybe if she had a normal childhood, she would have known what to say at this moment. She sighed again. If only she wasn't so socially awkward. And if she had taken Naruto's advice and getting to know some of the rebels, she might have understood what to do at this moment. Do you think she would have liked this view? Fu looked up shocked at hearing Naruto's voice in 2 days. He was the one that usually talked, and she always kept up the conversation. But given the recent situation, he was just so quiet, and it was awkward, and she didn't know what to say. The boat rocked again. She nearly lost her lunch, as she calmed herself with several deep breaths. It depends. Would she still like it with dark clouds and constant rain? The rain that was always following them was now completely gone. Not even a hint of dark clouds. Surprisingly, a small smile came on Naruto's face of remembering. She had noticed he's no longer keeping his eyes narrowed. She wasn't sure if he didn't notice or simply didn't care anymore. His Rinnegan was on full view of display. You're right, things would have been so different if she was still here. If I had just done something to save her. As a smile quickly slipped away, as he looked towards the waters, his shakijo wasn't at his side, probably tucked away in his cabin. It wasn't like it was going to be stolen. Fu placed a hand on his shoulder. She wasn't good with people, but she had seen Naruto do to others before, and helped them. You shouldn't blame yourself, Naruto. Naruto spun to look at her, as she saw anger in his eyes. Why not? As he slammed his fist on the railing. But the anger didn't last long though, it wasn't like him. His face returned to sadness as he slumped on the deck, his back propped up by the railing. It's my fault, it's all my fault. If I had been faster, more in control, if I had sensed them earlier, or never accepted the mission, or if I had new medical ninjutsu. Maybe, his head slumped down. I could have saved her. Fu sit down next to him. Someone feeling like this at the moment shouldn't be alone. As she just stayed quiet there for him. As she remembered. Flashback. As both Fu and Naruto stood there, the shovel that Naruto has been holding disappeared into black dust. Tears were flowing down Naruto's face. Fu knew that she should be crying as well, but she hadn't cried since she was a little girl. I think she would have been happy with this. They were on a rather large cliff, where a good base was, where they had digged the grave. The ocean down below, rushing. The two of them were drenched, but that stopped raining after Naruto patted down the earth with a shovel that he created. He stood up. As he stood still, he raised one single finger, and he started to move it around in a distant pattern. The ground cracked for a bit as sand started to swirl. The sand swirled into something and turned. Fu was surprised when she saw a perfect replica of Shizuku smiling peacefully. Naruto stepped forward and placed a hand on the statue, closing his eyes as blue flames erupted on his hand. It spurred across the sculpture, covering it in pure flames. The fire was not giving off any real heat. When Naruto removed his hand, the fire went away. Instead of sand, it was a perfectly marble material of Shizuku. He had shifted sand into pure stone, but it looked like it was made out of some strange tile. It looked incredible. This was the first time Fu seen him doing something like this, without even using his black rods. It was perfect to the last detail. Her clothes even appear wet, and water clung to her hair. It's beautiful. Again, Naruto remained silent, just looking at Shizuku's eyes. As he closed his eyes and went quiet. As long as he was alive, this would stay here. Her final place of resting. End of flashback. It's my fault too, you know. Naruto looked up towards Fu. This time she had a far off look. Maybe if I had stayed at her side, not left her alone, when she wasn't ready yet. At least, she was avenged though. Because I killed him, said Naruto, as his fist clenched. Because I threw away my beliefs. He lowered his head. I'm a monster. As a monk, it was never in their beliefs to kill. And he threw that all away. The rage, the anger there, it was too much for him. His face was lifted by Fu. Am I a monster? She asked. As Naruto's answer was instant. Of course not. She pressed a finger against his lips, stopping him. The first time I killed was when I was 8 years old. They woke me up earlier than they usually did, forcing me outside to my training ground rather quickly. There were people there, people I didn't recognize, looking at me in ways I didn't recognize and understand. Looking back now, I think it was pity or anxiety. I'm not so sure. Her voice was low, like she was telling a secret. There was a man there too. He was beaten up, blooded. I was told that he was an enemy of Taki and he needed to die. They put a kunai in my hand and I did not even tremble. I looked at him. He didn't look up, he didn't talk, he didn't do anything. He just knelt there. Seemed like he had already accepted what was going to happen. Do you know what I thought back then? Naruto didn't say anything, as it was not really a question. I thought, what artery do I cut, so blood wouldn't get all over me? She looked down, her eyes becoming dull. It didn't work. That night I had to sleep, in clothing, drenched in the man's blood. I never knew his name, or what he did to deserve death. I never asked. And that wasn't my last kill either. I stopped counting after a while. I never questioned it, just stopped doing it because I never want to be punished for disobeying. Now tell me, am I a monster? Naruto gaped at her, his mouth trying to catch up to his mind. Eventually he shook his head. No. Then how could you ever be? She asked. You don't understand, Naruto said. It was different. As you remember that moment where he could see Yagura dying in front of him, I later held his soul in my hand. His life, his techniques, everything, his memories. I could feel it all. Fu remembered that. She thought that it was some trick of the light, but she saw Naruto pull a strange, ghost-like figure from Yagura's body, as it accompanied by a sickening, tearing noise. Look, said Naruto. Naruto waved his finger in mid-air, drawing a circle with one finger. As a mirror made from pure water appeared. That is his technique. I didn't even know that it existed before fighting him. And now I feel like I've been practicing since the very beginning. Everything he did, all those horrible, unspeakable acts against humanity. There, inside of me now. Fu widened her eyes, that was horrible, but also beneficial to have. The experience and knowledge of Akagi. In just minutes. Is it? She asked. After a moment, Naruto nodded. Yeah, it's another path, the human path. Naruto says he got a faraway look. He never knew if his abilities could be like that. So that is what pleased Fu. I don't want to talk about it right now, he said. Fu nodded. Naruto really didn't want to talk about it. Yagura thought his experience, everything was pressed beneath the surface, being covered by Naruto's own consciousness. Fu, he said. Fu looked up, glad that he was talking once again. What if it changes me? What if I become like him and I change? Fu lifted his chin to meet her eyes. Do you feel different? She asked. But later, I said, do you feel different? She asked once again. No, he said. You are still Naruto until you decide otherwise. Nobody or nothing can change that. Yagura was an evil man. The things that he did affected so many people. They would see he was a hero for killing him. But is that an excuse for taking his life away? I killed him out of revenge. Now people would be looking for me for revenge. And if they killed me, somebody would go after them for revenge once again. That is an endless, horrible cycle of hatred that always surrounds humanity. He released a long sigh, but humanity is what it is. Not even Sage could stop that cycle. How could I do anything about it? But that's it. You don't have to do anything right now. You have your whole life ahead of you, she said. For now, just give her time to grieve and move on. Find new happiness, new friends. Naruto looked up, his eyes wide in shock. Move on? Shizuku once told me that you made her a promise, that you would have never make her cry again. You think, despite the situation, she would have wanted to stay like this? Naruto looked down, remembering her last words to him, as she had wiped the tears from his eyes. But I broke that promise, I couldn't protect her. Fu rested her head on his shoulder. It was a bit awkward, but she has seen some boys and girls did this in some of the towns they passed through. It might help. No, you didn't. Did she once cry after that? Despite the pain in his heart remembering that, she never cried while she died. He went silent for a few seconds. Fu, he said. Thank you, he said after a while. Fu smiled. We're friends, aren't we? As he simply nodded. Time skip. A week passed. As Naruto felt bad for leaving the rebels like that, he didn't even say anything to Nezuko. She probably didn't even know that Shizuku was dead. After all, the both of them are friends. He simply resolved to see her again one day. As he thought what the rebels are doing now, without the Mizukage, the Kirin ninjas must be panicking, and Mei would definitely take advantage of that. For all he knew, the rebellion was over already, and Kira was in Mei's hands already. He always heard people calling her the future Mizukage, like if it was a certainty, and now he knew it was. He shook his head and calmed his breathing. With his time in the rebellion, he never sat back and just meditate. Right now, he was trying to find his roots once again. He blew a stray bang of hair from his face. He really did get his hair cut very soon. He felt that tug though, as he let it overtook him. Naruto grimaced at the sight around him. If he thought the hallways looked bad after taking in Mantabe, it was now even worse. Corrosive chakra leaked violently, burning through the floor. Naruto grimaced slightly, as he was too numb feeling the death of Shizuku to even worry about the pain. But allowing himself to burn from the inside out wouldn't be really too good, and Shizuku would probably be angry at him for it, not looking after herself. He started to focus on his own chakra system. The pipes started to fix themselves as he closed his eyes, like time was going back and they were being sealed up. Ross creaked away and vanished. The corridor was also healing itself. He made his way to the large chamber holding his various tenants, as it became a hectagon with a new gate between Mantabe and the Kyube. The new tenant seemed like he didn't want to be there. The standby was roaring as he bashed his tail against the bars. As the seal was quite weak at the moment, all the time that he allowed the corrosive chakra system to go through his system and removing and sealing it within him. "Stop," said Naruto. But he did not stop. "I said stop," he called out. But the giant turtle still smashed against the bars. "Stop," Naruto shouted. The standby was blown back into the depths of the seal as the bars started to repair themselves, but the three tails simply smashed back in them with a terrible force. It was surprisingly fast for a creature its size. Naruto blew it back with an almighty push. As he looked at the beast, for some reason or another, one of its eyes were permanently closed. But what Naruto saw in the other one shocked him. A three-toe mole spinning in a black background. Ever since going to the temple, those eyes have haunted him. He froze for a moment, only for another roar to snap him out of it. He rushed forward and placed his hands on the bars, channeling as much chakra as possible. The standby started to flash around violently, its single eye looking crazy. Then suddenly, the Sharingan dissipated, leaving the creature a normal eye, with a single golden bang. When Naruto saw that, he backed away, panting a bit, as he had used his chakra to invade the Bijuu chakra system. He just released the genjutsu that was over it. The standby then collapsed down unconscious, but before it did, it looked rather confused. What was that? Naruto saw Shikako looking rather nervous. Manatami was asleep as she slept through the entire ordeal. As his eyes drifted towards the Kyube, that human was a Sharingan. The bastardized version of the sage prize eyes. For centuries, those damn eyes have haunted us Bijuu, ever since the first Uchiha awakened them. That's right, you can be controlled, can't you? The fox stepped into the light, glaring at him. "I am controlled by nothing, human." So the standby was being controlled. By who? The fox rage seemed to switch to something else as it growled dangerously. It's unmistakable. The scent of Uchiha Madara permeated the air around Icebu. Naruto filed away the standby name for later as he turned back towards the great fox. "Madara? I thought you said he died. If only the cursed genjutsu of the Sharingan was so easy to break, I would have never had fallen under that damn human." But he did not say control. In any case, a genjutsu, to be able to enthrall a Bijuu, could naturally be strong enough to outlast the user's death. That is, if Madara Uchiha is dead. Naruto raised an eyebrow in confusion. If there was any of you humans being able to slip by the Shinigami, it would definitely be that man. Although he would be a frail old man by now. A vicious grin came to the fox's face as he enjoyed that sight, seeing Madara as an old, frail, shriveled up man. Regardless, he turned back to Naruto. "There's a matter of you forcefully stealing my chakra, human. Do you not think that validate compensation?" A chill ran through Naruto's body as he looked at those red eyes staring down at him. "Compensation?" said Naruto. "Simple. Release me from the seal. Allow me to tear your body apart and all will be forgiven." Naruto blinked. "You know, you're a terrible negotiator for a creature who's supposed to be sly and cunning. Anyway, I have no idea how I release you at all. I know it's not that simple as just forcing your chakra out of my body. Such a thing would just tear apart his chakra system, or paralyze him for life, or just kill him. Actually, you could release any of us in the same manner, like Father did." All of them turned towards Manatabe as she stretched like a rather large feline. Father used the creation ability to create us bodies, before allowing her chakra to seep into it, slowly after time. Naruto blinked as he never thought of that, using sage power to create a living, breathing body. A human like him can never master a technique to that degree. He can not even perform it properly, said the fox. What do you mean not doing it correctly? The fox snorted. Naruto should know better to think the fox would help him. He means you're only using half of the technique full potential, said Nebe. The fox simply growled, but she ignored him. Telling would be cheating. But to understand, you have to learn more about chakra and how it works, and what it's composed of. She yawned, closing her eyes like she hadn't been asleep for days. Naruto, on the other hand, focused, as it all came to chakra. The same reason why he left the temple in the first place. He looked over at the sandbag. He was still unconscious, before turning towards Shizuku. Shizuku was holding on to his hands and just holding them together in a strangely funny way. It looked rather nervous and calm. That was strange for the Shizuku. Father? Naruto walked over to the cage. The Kyuubi eye had cracked open, but Naruto ignored him. Yes, Shizuku? As Shizuku went down and looked at Naruto, Shizuku felt like father was angry and sad. Shizuku sent his hand to help. He doesn't like when father is sad. Did Shizuku help? Naruto blinked in surprise. It was like Shizuku was worried for him. He had thought that Tanuki was merely insane, overlapping his feelings for him because of Sage's eyes. But you remember when the tails of Yagura was about to impale him, but the sand rose up and stopped it. He didn't do it, it did by itself. As Naruto smiled, yes Shizuku, you really did help, said Naruto. As a big smile spread across Shikaku's face. He was almost like a little child. Shizuku will always protect father, like how father protected Shizuku. As he ducked down, Naruto made sure to rub his head, putting a bit more force to make him know that he really appreciated for his help, even though he would have healed from anything that Yagura threw towards him, but Shizuku didn't need to know that. But it was still a grateful gesture on Shikaku's part. He once again left the seal, with all four Bijus lying down. The Kyuubi watched Naruto as he went away. Time skip, the boat had to come to a stop in Yukinokuni for a while, so Naruto and Fu looked around the snowy field. Seems like a nice place, really quiet, but a bit too cold. It hadn't lasted long though, and they continued on their journey off the Hidden Stone. Naruto noticed that a brief supply stop at the Hidden Snow caused some problems with some of the passengers. After he got out of his stupor, he found that the ship was carrying a film crew on it. Apparently, Yuki Fujikaze was aboard, but she didn't come out of her bunker down below, especially while they were near the land of snow. Naruto paid it no mind though, but his interest was piqued. But most part of the ship was barred off. It seems that the director wanted to shoot his film, and the captain was more than happy enough to do that, bringing more attention to his ship. Naruto found it irritating when he wasn't allowed to go on deck, just in case he interrupted the scene. When he told them he could become invisible and he won't interrupt anything, they just looked at him strangely. But the worst thing came when the director found some inspiration near Fu's room, and he wanted to shoot something in the air, as Fu had to spend the night with Naruto. When he insisted on taking the floor and she must take the bed, Fu insists on joining him anyway. Seems his body heat was a lot warmer than blankets. Fu seemed to enjoy herself, smiling the entire time. Naruto did not have an issue with it, he rather enjoyed the company. It was just the fact that it reminded him of the night that he spent with Shizuku, and he started to remember, and he didn't get much sleep after that. By the time they arrived, Naruto had lost enough sleep to gain a lot of black lines around his eyes that would make Gaara proud. Fu was glad they were going to be going back to dry land, where the floor wouldn't be moving underneath her. Flight she could handle, but anything to do with water transport, not so much. As Naruto released a breath, opened his eyes. The fourth Mizukage, while a terrible, despicable man, surely was powerful, and his techniques could reflect that. His technique to sense everything around him, using water chakra in the air, was astonishing. It was close to echolocation, but Naruto water fainted wasn't as strong as Yagura's, so he could only stretch it out about 200 meters while sitting still, as he could feel all the chakra signatures as he felt Fu approaching him. The technique was weak where there was less water vapor, but that wasn't too bad, seeing that you were on a ship out in sea. Alright, let's go. Fu nodded happily. Since coming out of his little dipper's shell, Fu was opening up more to him. He couldn't tell if she was doing the way to comfort him, or if she felt some kind of guilt for Shizuku's death, as Naruto rather enjoyed the change though, from a expressionless Kunoichi to a relatable teenage girl. The two made their way off the ship, the film crew not too far behind them, making Naruto wonder what would they be filming in the land of Earth. But he ignored them as they set off in the rather large town. The two of them aimlessly wandered through the town. Fu had been following him, naturally trusting him, everywhere he was going since she has been in Taki. As he stopped, they were in a shopping district as he made his way towards a cafe. A few minutes later, Naruto was sipping on some tea as Fu was drinking water. So what now, said Fu. Naruto leaned back and rolled his neck. I'm not sure. I would recommend going to the Hidden Stone and work on earth manipulation, but my master warned me on that. Apparently I bear too much of a resemblance to the fourth Hokage, and it might not be safe for me. After so long traveling the road, Naruto knew that humanity would do some stupid things, like attacking someone for looking like someone else. Yes, that was weird. He didn't even like it one bit, but that was just how humanity was. It had a darker side to it. Is there anywhere else you can learn earth manipulation? Naruto paused for a moment, his eyes turned back to Fu, until he turned towards her. Why are you following me, Fu? He asked. She blinked. What do you mean? What do you gain from being with me? Naruto asked, as he moved the cup in his hand. So far I've nearly put you in trouble with Kumo and dragged you into a civil war you could have died in. He looked up, sadness in his eyes. I don't want you to follow me to your death, Fu. Fu released a breath. For one moment there, she thought he was abandoning her, and she wasn't sure she could deal with that. Like Shizuku, she said. Naruto flinched a bit at the accusing words. She wasn't really directing anything towards him though. Naruto, what happened to Shizuku was not your fault. She chose to follow you because you saved her from a life more terrible than the one she had when she was with you. She followed you because she saw something with you that made her want to follow you. If you're at fault, it's just because you're an amazing person who think of others before he think of himself. Then why do you follow me? Naruto asked. A soft smile came on her lips, making her look incredibly cute. Because while I didn't see that same quality at first, you were there long enough for me, so I was able to. For that alone, I will continue to follow you, no matter what you say. Finally, a small smile came on his face. Thanks, Fu. He drank the rest of his tea. It's good to know I have a real friend in me, he said. Fu nodded as she sipped at her water. Although that doesn't really help with where we're supposed to be going next. There may be a library with earth manipulation techniques in Saki no Kuni capital. Naruto stood up. Fu down the water as they left the cafe. It's worth a shot. I think the Hidden Stone should be a last resort. Fu nodded. It wasn't hard for her to spot the resemblance between Naruto and Minato Namikaze. She had been taught about many of the previous Hokage apart from her training, to counter some of their famous technique, but there was no known counter for the Hiroshin. Part of what made the man so formidable, he could literally kill you before you even realized he was there. In fact, many of the legendary world could do that. Those are Mother Uchiha, the first Hokage, the second Tishikage, and the second Mizukage. And the third Raikage was still recognized as the most powerful shinobis to ever live. It took overwhelming force or some other disasters to take those men down. After all, they were like gods, the normal ninjas when you put it into account. As they were walking, there was a bit of silence. This was the time when Shizuku usually speak. And also, the small little monkey. He had disappeared sometime after Shizuku's death. Maybe Naruto just forgotten him in his dizzy haze. But their peaceful time couldn't last for long, as Naruto felt a multiple amount of signatures start to surround them. Their chakra levels put them as shinobi, but not particularly powerful. If he had to guess, he would say they were a squad of new tunings. Fu narrowed her eyes as she sensed them as well. Naruto turned to an alleyway, forcing them out. Look what we got here, boys. Naruto simply sighed. But guys, we end subscribe right here. For what's next part is to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. Remember, stay tuned for the rest of what is coming your way, and I hope you guys enjoy each and every one of them. And remember, if you're new, to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Making family. And thank you for all of your help and support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new. I'll be replying talking about to all of you. So yeah, without further ado, I'm out for now. See you guys soon, guys. Peace.